Yes, hello, welcome back to the Rugby League Forecast podcast. My name is Connor Moran, and today I will be going through the round two Witzer preseason challenge results and games over the weekend. I will touch on the games that I found more interesting than others going into it as a fan, as a rugby league fan. There were a lot more games in this round that I found a lot more intriguing than others. For example, say Cronulla and Parramatta. You could take some things out of that, but there were also a lot of reserve grade players playing in that game. If you're a Melbourne Storm fan or a Penrith Panthers fan, you can't be too disappointed at the end of the day. Yeah, you had reserve grade players, the majority of those squads reserve grade players against some, fully full strength lineups against you. So you probably can't take overly much out of those games, but there was a game on Thursday night which I'll touch on now, the Titans and the Dolphins. And when these two sides were named Tuesday last week, I was really intrigued as a rugby league fan, based on the fact that it was Selwyn Cobbo's first game in the Dolphins gear. Tom Flegler making his not his debut, but his return to rugby league after 677 days on the sidelines. Absolutely inspirational stuff to see him back in that jersey. Back on the field was just absolutely fantastic, and what a second half he did have. Morgan Knowles making his first appearance in the Dolphins outfit, starting in that 13 jersey. So it was just really interesting to see these new players come to the clubs. Lachlan Ilias at the Gold Coast, Jalen de Groot at fullback. He played a couple of games at fullback last year for the Titans, and yeah, so there was just a lot to watch in this game. I'm going to touch now on the Dolphins first. The Titans won this game 24 points to 12, and to be fair to the Gold Coast Titans, they were not expected to win this match. If you look at the two lineups, there was far much more experience in that Dolphins lineup than there was in the Gold Coast lineup. And it was absolutely inspirational to see what the Gold Coast Titans did. And, you know, there were times where you just think, oh, yeah, the Gold Coast Titans, they're losing the plot here. They're going to just do what the Titans normally do, and the opposition runs away with it in the final 20 minutes or so. But they didn't do that. They hung in there and they played like a really happy team. They played like they were having fun. It looked like kids having fun and kids that wanted to be there and wear that jersey, which as a rugby league fan was really, really fantastic to see. Because I haven't seen that in a Titans outfit since they probably made a prelim in 2010, which was the last time they actually got to a prelim, which is a long, long time ago. So for me, the Titans did really well in this to hang in there. I'll touch on them in a moment, but I'll start on the Dolphins. I've got here Morgan Knowles. So for me, he was really aggressive. He did miss a fair few tackles, which I did find a little bit disappointing because I thought his defense in the Ashes last year was really strong. But he did have a lot of aggressive intent in defense, which I found to be really something that the Dolphins lacked over the years. I feel like the way in which he charge up and try and put a shot on the opposition. There will be plenty of times where he will do that and he will make a shot and he will get the defender. But he did miss a couple of times. But I thought overall, he had a solid hit out. He tried really hard and his defense at times was strong as well in this game, but he did unfortunately miss a fair few tackles as well. Selwyn Cobbo for me looked really strong at centre. Now, just before half time, Kevin Walters was the commentator on the sideline, and he said something that I found a bit bizarre. Respectfully, I just disagreed with him completely because he said I'd like to see Selwyn Cobbo become more involved in this game, but I thought he was. I remember thinking, am I watching a different game? Because I thought, he wore the number 3 jersey. He was playing centre, and he had some strong carries to get them out of trouble. The kicking game from especially Lachlan Ilias was, very good, and it put those Dolphins they were struggling to make meters, and I thought Selwyn Cobbo just changed the momentum consistently in that first half for the Dolphins. He wasn't one of their better players, but I also thought that he involved himself when he needed to, where at times that's probably his weakness, where he does sort of enter in and out of games when that suits him. But I thought he did well. I was surprised Kevin Walters made that opinion or that suggestion because I thought he wasn't heavily involved, but he was involved enough that he was making a difference and a strong difference to the Dolphins' attack, which was absolutely fantastic to see. For me, he's not a centre, Selwyn Cobbo. I might be wrong, and he may end up being a great centre down the track. But for me, he's either a winger or a fullback down the track. For me, I think his best position at the moment's wing, on the wing, because I understand, you've got Jermaine Asako there and, you've got Jack Bostock. You've got good wingers there already. I get that. But I just think Selwyn Cobbo's kick returns will be really, really important. I really do believe that. I just think his kick returns, when he was in peak form around, 2022, 2023 for the Brisbane Broncos, his kick returns was just so consistent and such a game changer for the Broncos when they were behind on the scoreboard. I thought Selwyn Cobbo was absolutely fantastic in this game, to be honest. Yeah, as I mentioned, he wasn't one of the better players, but I thought, if I'm Selwyn Cobbo, if I'm his coach and I'm watching him perform in this game, I'm really impressed with how he, challenged himself in this game as well. There was a beautiful tip on he did to the winger, Navahu, on that left edge, which Isaiah Katoa threw a beautiful pass to Cobbo, and it was that tap on. Navahu on the wing ended up dropping the ball over the line, but it was really good work there from Cobbo. So, look, he can play centre, just in my opinion. It's probably not his best position at this moment of his career. I thought Jake Averillo had a couple of good runs, but overall, to be honest with you, I think he really struggled. I know back at the Bulldogs in season 2022, he played a bit of fullback and he played a bit of halfback. And, he can play fullback and he's not a bad player at all. In fact, Jake Averillo for me is a really good footballer, but I just felt like he just had a really bad night. Respectfully, I just think he struggled. A couple of really bad passes, really poor defensive reads as well. And I watched him closely at fullback, and I actually watched this game twice. I watched this game on Thursday night, and I watched it again last night, and I just felt like he was quiet at the back. It seemed like he wasn't communicating as much as perhaps he should have been. So I might be completely wrong, but it's one thing I notice when I watch a defensive line where the fullback is in screen at times. They're directing players around. You always see a fullback either going left or right or come back or, but he was really quiet in terms of communication. Perhaps he's communicating in a different way than other fullbacks do. Maybe he just uses his voice, but it didn't look like he was using his voice as much as he should too. So for me, I just think fullback's not his position. Jake Averillo is a really good centre, and look, he can play in the halves as well, or he could be a really good number 14. But look, I think he's a good player. I think he had a really poor night. And I'm sure he'd be the first to admit that as well. He seemed a bit disappointed at halftime there at walking off, but at the end of the day, I thought he had a decent hit out. There were a couple of good runs there, but yeah, just probably expected a little bit more from a guy that's been in the NRL now for 5 or 6 seasons. Thomas Flegler played his first game in over 2 years. So he came on in the second half and changed the momentum. So when he came on, he made a huge difference scoring a try after being held up over the line in the set before. Where, I got up and cheered when he got over the line. He got held up and went, oh no, because I really wanted him to score after that long break. But then, a set later, he ended up scoring over the try. Young Fiend, when he got into the halves, I thought he came on and did a really good job. He linked it up really well with Zach Garton there. The young back rower, I thought he did really well. They linked up really well, had a nice little combination on that left edge. I thought Brad Schneider, who started at 5'8", I thought he had a really solid game too for the Dolphins. He started at 5'8". At times he moved into that dummy half position. I thought he defended really strongly as well, Brad Schneider. Tom Gilbert, he looked really strong when he played as well, so it was good to see him back on the field after another injury last year. So it was great to see the captain back. For the Titans, I thought Lachlan Ilias looked really sharp in that number 6 jersey, to be honest. I felt like he was quite threatening. He looked like he's put some pace on and some size on as well. As I mentioned earlier in the podcast, I thought his kicking game was really quite good. And the number 7, I tell you what, I've heard of this guy, but I've never seen him play. And his name is Zane Harrison, who looked really good in that number 7 jersey. And for me, he just controlled their sets really well. Like he didn't do anything spectacular, but I reckon he just knew how to. I think he went in there with no pressure. The way he played, he just went, "I'm the number seven. I'm going to do what I can, which is to conduct this side around and you know, do what he can." And I thought he did a really good job. I think he knew he could do a good job without being having a highlights reel in this trial, which I think is really smart, wise, and mature football from a young footballer. And I thought he just did a really good job. I thought he directed the side around really, really well. I thought Mo Fotuaika looked really strong as he always does, to be honest with you. But when he scored the opening try for the Gold Coast Titans, I think that's a great start to his season. He was a bit hot and cold, to be honest, Mo Fotuaika, under Des Hasler's coaching since 2024. But I still believe the best is to come in his career, Mo Fotuaika, who played Origin last year as well. I think he's a terrific player, a really consistent, reliable player. So it was good for him to cross over for a meat pie. Cooper Bye at number 13. Now, I've heard a lot about Cooper Bye over the last few months about the Melbourne Storm and the Gold Coast Titans and trying to re-sign this kid. But for me, he was absolutely fantastic. Like, I've seen him play one game, and I think he only played one game last year, which I think may have been against the West Tigers at the end of the year. So I'm pretty sure he's played one NRL game, but Cooper Bye was the star of this game. The number 13 was unbelievable. He was dominant. He was aggressive. He was involved. His defense was unbelievable. He read the game. I think he's only, 20, 21 years old. He was killing it. He looked so hard to stop. And he's got this beautiful ability of offloading quite easily due to his strength and aggression that he barges into the defensive line. He's just, man, this guy is unbelievable. If I'm Josh Hannay after that trial match, surely you are strongly considering Cooper Bye starting the season in the number 13 jersey and moving Tino to prop. I think you move Tino to the number 10 jersey because, in my opinion, I think Tino can do a really good job in the lock forward position. But surely you get more out of Tino. Surely the team gets more out of Tino being in a prop forward where he's not going to be doing 50 tackles a game. I think he could be more damaging if he plays 60 minutes a game rather than 80 minutes a game in that 13 when he is on and when he's got energy. Just let him do his thing at prop forward, but let him be a Payne Haas in that 10 jersey. I thought Cooper Bye was absolutely fantastic. Jalen de Groot, he looked pretty solid at fullback. Will he get a go at first grade this year? Probably not. They've just got too many fullbacks there. If Keanu Kinney went down, then you've got AJ Brimson or Jaden Campbell that can move there as well. So, but when Jalen de Groot did play last year, he played a lot of the season on the wing, but he also played a few games at fullback. And when he did play at fullback, I thought he actually did a really good job in season 2025 under Desi Hasler, considering the year they had, finishing in 16th position. I thought the young Titans they stayed in the game. And they beat a really good, experienced Dolphins side. And sure, that Dolphins side hadn't played overly many games together as a squad. I mean, as I mentioned, you had a lot of new players come into that side, but I thought they were absolutely terrific. I thought they did a really, really good job. I think Josh Hannay, you've got to be really proud of that because I certainly didn't think they'd win that game against a squad like the Dolphins had on that field. That was absolutely remarkable what the Gold Coast Titans did in that game. Let's get to the next game. I won't spend so long in this game because I'll be completely honest, there's probably more of a lack of interest going into this game as a rugby league nerd, just based on the fact that there weren't overly many first graders in this game. It was more of a reserve grade game, I've got to admit, but it was really interesting when the squads got mentioned last Tuesday. Dane Laurie got named in the number 7 jersey, and back then, last Tuesday, I thought, it's going to be really good to see either Ethan Sanders or Kobe Black named in that 7 to see how they go. But apparently Kobe Black has had an injury and he should be right by the early rounds of the season. But Sanders, I thought, would be named in the 7 jersey. But he wasn't. And I thought, okay, well, Dane Laurie's played most of his career when he has played first grade at fullback, which, especially for the Tigers under Madge a few years ago, he played a couple of seasons there. He can play in the halves. And I tell you what, I didn't know what to expect from Dane Laurie here. I thought he was terrific in that 7 jersey. I thought he had a really, really good game for Canberra. And now with this 6-man bench rule, I think he could be a really good buy for Canberra. I think he could end up being a really good buy for the Raiders. And will he play many games? I'm not sure, but I tell you what, if KO Weeks went down, what do they do? Do you go Dane Laurie at fullback, or do you go Chevy Stewart, who I thought was also quite impressive in this game as well? For me, Dane Laurie was the better player, and I understand Laurie played at 7, not fullback, but I thought Laurie's, he that kick he put into the Raiders winger Michael Asamoah, who scored a couple of tries in the first half. That grubber kick from Laurie was absolutely fantastic. I thought Sebastian Chris, when he came on, he played really well. I was interested to see what Sebastian Chris was doing on the bench, as I mentioned in the podcast last Tuesday. I couldn't understand why he was named on the bench. And I'm wondering if they're thinking of perhaps Sebastian Chris could play more of an edge forward, or more of just that ball playing lock sort of guy. I wasn't sure what they were thinking, but he played on the edge. He did a really good job, and I thought he was he was actually absolutely fantastic when he came on. I thought Owen Paddy was all right. I thought he did a pretty good job. I honestly, maybe sounds harsh and ridiculous. I probably expected a little bit more from Owen Paddy, but at the end of the day, I wonder, I keep forgetting, like, he's only 19, 20 years old, Owen Paddy. And, when he did play first grade last year, I thought he just came on and had such a great combination off the bench alongside Tom Starling, who would start in that number 9 jersey. And I think I'm overhyping in my head Owen Paddy, because I just get the sense that this kid is just going to be a future superstar number 9. So whenever I watch him now, I have high hopes. And if he doesn't do anything spectacular, then I think to myself, am I being too harsh to think perhaps he's, you know, not producing? I don't know. I just think I'm, um, sounding harsh, if I'm to be completely honest with you. But I thought he did a decent job. He's a really good defender, Owen Paddy. And I think his service from dummy half is really good. He's got speed off the ruck, off the mark. And I just think he's a fantastic young dummy half. But I don't think he did overly um, many great things in this game, to be honest. I thought he was probably going to be a little bit better, but in saying that, leave it in the comments if you think I'm totally wrong. The Melbourne Storm, look, guys, as I said at the start of the podcast, you can't take overly too much out of this. If you're a Melbourne Storm fan, you can't be too disappointed. I thought, look, Trent Larero, he was a watch, but at the end of the day, he's suspended for the first couple of games, I'm pretty sure. So that game against Parramatta in a couple of weeks on a Sunday, I think it is, Sunday afternoon football in Melbourne, or perhaps a Saturday, that game, he will miss out on that game. So the ones to watch, Jack Hetherington, who I thought looked really fit, to be honest. I thought he was really aggressive and involved early on. And for me, the main guy to watch in this side was Atavalu Lasati, who there's strong raps on. There's talk that he will start on the edge, will get the first crack on the edge, replacing Eli Katoa, who's of course out for the season with those with that concussion in the Pacific Championships last year. So Atavalu Lasati, I thought was, he did a pretty good job. Joe Chan is another option they could put in that second row. Also, they can put what's his name? Hang on, it's coming to me. The centre that got injured in the grand final. It'll come to me. It'll come to me. And then Tyron Wishart came on. He's a really good player. It'll come to me. It'll come to me. You could put him in the second row as well. I apologise. Normally I'm spot on with that sort of stuff, and I've got that one wrong. It's in the back of my mind. Come on, Connor, man. No, can't remember. Anyway, it'll pop up. Next game, Cowboys 66, Panthers 24. The Cowboys, look, I actually think it was really, I think it may have been a strategic move from Todd Payton to play his first grade squad this week before they fly to Vegas this week. I thought, I thought it was smart, because I looked at that squad and I thought, okay, perhaps This most likely is probably the squad that will be named 1 to 17 going to Vegas. And I think he thought, well, Penrith, traditionally, they don't play many of their stars in trial matches. He knows how far they've come in finals, how many origins they've played, how many rep players that they've had for the last 5, 6, 7 years now. So I reckon Todd Payton may have thought to himself, you know what? They're probably just going to run out with a reserve grade side. I'll play my first grade side so that they get plenty of confidence out of a big win. And I reckon it was really important that they won big in this game. 66 points to 24. And the reason for that is to give them confidence going to Vegas, to give them the confidence they needed after the disappointing season last year, to wipe that back, to just go, you know what, for the players to go, fuck all that. That poor defense and rubbish was last year. This is what we can produce this year. And sure, it was against a Panthers reserve grade side, but what a win can do to that that mindset mentally. Again, no matter who you're against, no matter if you're against fucking Queensland or a reserve grade side, you know what a mindset can do. Even just winning like that, you know what that can do for for the mindsets of these younger players coming through. Can't be underestimated, in my opinion. Um, Look, I won't touch on the Panthers, to be honest, you know, because at the end of the day, as I said at the start of the podcast, if you're a Panthers fan, you can't be too worried at all. I mean, I actually said in Team List Tuesday last week that, you know, I may not know many of these Panthers players right now, and I don't think many players do, but in 3 to 5 years' time, I'd be very surprised if I didn't know at least 17 of these fucking players based on how they produce and how they develop their players. The Cowboys, for me, sure, they had a big win, and it was extreme. It was expected that they were going to win big. Let's be honest. Like they had a very good fucking lineup compared to the Panthers lineup. But what I took out of this game was Reid Marnie at dummy half. Now, for me, Reece Robson's a really good dummy half, but for me, he's more of a defensive hooker. Like when he plays, if I tip the Cowboys in my tipping comp, or if I tip, I always, if I see Reece Robson named at number 9, it makes me feel safe, which sounds ridiculous. But I feel that if he's defending on the goal line and Reece Robson's in the middle defending, you should be okay, even though they fucked up last year. The Cowboys, they were, I think, the third worst defensive team in the competition in 2025. But it certainly wasn't Reece Robson who struggled defensively. For me, he's one of the best defenders in the competition. But at times, I think because he defended so much, he probably lacked a bit of creativity at dummy half at times. I think Reid Marnie looked really good in attack. I thought he looked. It's not fair to compare them because I find that they're just equally as good as each other, but they're different at the same time. So Reid Marnie, he's probably just got a little bit more spark out of dummy half in attack when it comes to the creativity of creating something near the try line. Reece Robson, for me, I just think, you know, you could put him at number 13. He'd play 80 minutes there. He's just a tackling machine. He reminds me of a young Cameron McInnes playing for the Dragons, you know, 8 to 10 years ago. He's just, you know, Reece Robson, I think he's 26, 27 years old now. It would be a really good buy at the Roosters, but I think Reid Marnie is going to be a really underrated signing this year for the Cowboys. And why the Bulldogs got rid of him, who knows? I know Bulldogs fans question why they did, but I think his leadership too will be instrumental at the Cowboys in season 2026. And let's not forget too, when the Cowboys when Reid Marnie moved to the Bulldogs at the end of the 2022 season, he got there in November 2022, and Cameron Ciraldo got there at the same time, and he named Matt Burton and Reid Marnie as the captains for season 2023. So obviously he's a leader. Obviously people look up to him. Obviously he's a talker. He's obviously a good communicator. And as I've said in the Cowboys 2025 season review, I think Reid Marnie will be. He will bring the mongrel that they need. I think they were at times they looked like they were okay to be bullied last year, the Cowboys, but Reid Marnie and that side will not allow that. He will get in the faces of the opposition. He will mind fuck them in defense. He will talk in their ears. And I think that's exactly what the Cowboys need. A real young, passionate dummy half that, as I mentioned, the key word there is passion. He's a passionate dummy half that will do anything for the players around him in a side. And I think he's going to be terrific at the Cowboys this year. And, you know, one of my predictions is that the Cowboys are going to make the 8 and have a really, really good season in 2026, where I say that and a lot of people look at me and go, what the fuck? Like, you know, they've only brought in Reid Marnie, but they've lost Reece Robson. But for me, I just think he's going to be absolutely fantastic in that number 9 jersey moving forward for the Cowboys, and I could actually see him playing the rest of his career at North Queensland. I think he's a local boy up there, and I think he'll do a really good job for them in season 2026. I thought Braden Burns was really impressive on the wing as well. I wasn't sure whether or not they were going to go with Robert Derby after I thought Derby's performance, as I mentioned in the trial review week 1 last week on the podcast. I talked about Robert Derby and how impressive I thought he was. The attitude adjustment and the way he ran, there was a real determination and motivation when he was running. He was running with purpose. And I think that's something that Braden Burns, I didn't know if he'd get a crack this week. I thought, okay, Robert Derby's probably done enough to cement his spot on the wing, but Braden Burns, fucking hell, he was for me one of the best players in the side over the weekend. If you're a Cowboys fan, you must be excited about Braden Burns. There haven't been massive raps on this kid, but like when he plays, he does a really good job. He's a smaller winger, but he's so strong, and I just felt like he scored a great try there in the corner. I thought he really stood out to me. I thought Kai O'Donnell was fucking outrageous. He was amazing once again for the Cowboys. He was one of their stars last week against the Bulldogs. I thought Helen Lukey was absolutely outstanding. Jackson Purdue was great at centre. Look, he'll most likely start there now with Zach Labour getting sin binned. For me, that suggested the fact that he got sin binned, put on a report. You don't really see many of them come off. Unfortunately, I think for Zach Labour, he will probably miss out on the Vegas game, which to me now means that Jackson Purdue will most certainly start in the centres. And to be honest, I think that's probably how they were going to line up anyway. I reckon Jackson Purdue at this stage of his career needs to be in that number 3 jersey. And they've also got Tom Chester there as well, who, he was breaking records for the Cowboys in the fitness drills over the 2026 preseason. For me, I think he ends up in that number 4 jersey to replace Zach Lay. But if he gets suspended, it's not a definite he'll be suspended, but as a rugby league fan, I'd be very surprised if he gets off. Jake Clifford, for me, he was outstanding in the trial last week against the Bulldogs in that 7 jersey. When Purdue was in the 6, I thought Clifford was the standout half in that game. And again, in this game, I thought he was absolutely terrific wearing the 6 jersey. For me, I think he deserves that number 6 in Vegas. I think he deserves it. Just his long kicking game is outstanding. His bombs are very underrated. I just think he's just a first grader. He's a consistent NRL player. Why he drops in and out of Queensland, first grade to Queensland Cup and back in, I never understood it. I think he's a really underrated NRL player, and I think there would be a position for him at any club for many more years to come. I think, I think he combined really well with Thomas Dearden in the halves over the weekend. And, as I mentioned, they were up against a reserve grade Panthers side, but absolutely fantastic, I thought, Jake Clifford for the Cowboys. All right, next game, the Manly Sea Eagles, 33 points over the Warriors, 18. I'll start with the Warriors, and I've got to say, um, look, I am a Manly tragic supporter, but I do not always tip them. For example, I don't have Manly in my 8 this year. As much as that breaks my heart, I also I don't want to be a biased supporter all the time. Like sometimes I just want to be honest. Um, because whenever people are too biased with their teams, it's just I see it in the media all the time in NRL 360, and there's so much bias bullshit going on, and I just think, man, boys, be real. Like, who do you actually think will win? And I genuinely didn't think Manly would win this game based on the fact that you looked at the players that the Warriors had in this game. You had the likes of Wade Egan, Aaron Clark, Jackson Ford, who I will say was really impressive in this game. Kurt Capewell, Leka Halasima lining up in centre. Morgan Cannon, who made his debut, he's played his first game in a Warriors outfit. Whether or not he'll get a crack in the starting 17, probably not, but to start the season against the Sydney Roosters in round 1. But I just thought I thought they were going to win this game and win it quite comfortably. And that's that's coming from a Manly fan, that I looked at Manly's lineup and I went, okay, well, it's a reserve grade lineup up against a lineup that has a lot more players playing in it for starters. I think they had an extra 10 players to play in this game. Um, and you look at the reserve grade and how strong it's been in the Warriors system over the last couple of years. Like you've just got to go, well, okay, well, they're ready to go in this trial playing over there. It was a big occasion for the club, really, and I understand it was just a trial. But in saying that, I think, as I mentioned in the podcast last week, you can take a fair bit out of trials, in my opinion. And I thought the Warriors, if I'm a Warriors fan, I'd probably be one of the only clubs this week that lost that would probably be slightly concerned. I thought Tanner Boyd probably didn't offer overly too much at halfback, unfortunately, and with Luke Metcalf expected to come back in round 7, round 8, I wonder. I wonder if Tanner Boyd. Like for me, he's a really good NRL player. Like he's got a great kicking game. But he just probably didn't offer as much as I thought he would in this game up against a reserve grade Manly side. Yeah, I probably just expected better from him. They didn't come up with as nearly as many points as I expected the Warriors. And yeah, I mean, sure, they lost the game, but I probably expected them to score more than 18 points in this game, if I'm to be completely honest. Um, I'll touch on Manly. What a privilege it was to sit here last week on Team List Tuesday and talk about the number 6 and the number 7 for the first time. To say Anthony Large at 6, 7 Joey Walsh for the first time. I had goosebumps on my arms, I'm not going to lie. I was really impressed. On Tinny Large, for me, he was strong in attack. Probably not as flashy as Walsh looked in attack, but what really impressed me about Large was his defense, especially his goal line defense. Like he tackled like Steve Menzies around the legs, around it. He just hit hard, and when he ran, he charged, and he's got this natural ability of just taking, just sprinting off the mark. He was absolutely fantastic for me on Tinny Large, like really, really strong defensively. Only 18 years old. Joey Walsh is only 19 years old. I think he's 20 years old in May in a few months. But I thought Joey Walsh, he's a bit erratic, I think. Like sometimes he plays a little bit like Sam Walker, where he'll have the ball on a third tackle and he'll just kick it when you don't expect him to, or he'll just do this inside ball which didn't pull off, but you could tell he didn't give a shit of it. Ended up being an error for Manly. He knows that he needs to try this stuff, and he looked quite calm and relaxed while he was playing. And I think the thing about these two young halves for Manly is they look like they were having a great fucking time. Like to me, they look like they were having a really, really good time, and they enjoyed playing together. I thought that, tell you what, my concern about Manly going into this season was their lack of depth in the forwards. I may be completely wrong there. I thought Paul Bryan and Simone Lafai, I'm hoping I'm pronouncing that correctly, fucking outstanding. Like for me, Laifi, I'm hoping I'm pronouncing that correct. I thought he was their best player. I thought he was absolutely fantastic. He was just so dominant in that number 8 jersey. Mate, I'll be completely honest with you. I only heard about his name at the end of last year. I think around 27 after the Warriors game. A couple of weeks after that, I heard about his name on Facebook, I'm pretty sure. And so someone commented on the Manly Seagulls supporters page saying, oh, wait, we've got this young kid coming through. He'll be good for next year. Because if you look at Manly's depth in the forward pack this year, Taniela Paseka, Nathan Brown, Jake Travojevic, like Takiaho, and then what? What if we have 2 or 3 injuries in the forwards? I mean, which will happen. Every side gets fucking injuries in their forward pack. So it's good to see that we have a bit of depth there in the forwards, especially with Laifi, who I thought was absolutely fucking fantastic, as I mentioned. I thought the young hooker Zadis looked really sharp. When he came on, he wore the number 14 and he scored a really nice try at the end. Just on Joey Walsh too, I thought his kicking game was brilliant in this game. He almost kicked a 40-20 in this game, and there was a play where he just he set up a try with a kick, resulted in the Warriors making an error and Manly jumping on a loose ball and scoring. I thought he was just really good in that 7 jersey. There's something about Joey Walsh in that 7 jersey that just He looked like to me just a future Manly superstar, in my opinion. I know that's, he probably wouldn't want to hear people say that. And let's be honest, he wouldn't be hearing this podcast. But at the end of the day, like it was, really, really good to see. And I'm really happy for the young kid. It was absolutely fantastic to see. Zadis was great. Now, as a Manly fan, you're probably looking down the track as a spine, as Lehi Hopewadi at fullback, Anthony Large at 6, at 7, Joey Walsh and Zadis at 9. Like, that's a good fucking spine. And looking at the way these young guns are coming through, it's about Manly's board and Manly's management to make sure we keep these fucking young guns, to not fuck it up. Remember all those years ago, we had a young Cherry Evans, a young foreign. We win a comp in 2011. In 2015, Cherry Evans signed with the Gold Coast. I know he stayed, but he signed. And then foreign signed with Parramatta. And it was a shit fight. We just need to make sure with these young kids, we develop them correctly and we fucking keep them at the club and make sure that they're happy there. There needs to be a really happy environment. And one of my concerns about Manly going into this year is I'm not sure if there is under Seabold at the moment, to be completely honest. The Tigers 42 points to 26. Look, I might be wrong about that. I hope there is a happy environment at the Manly Sea Eagles, but with some things that happened at the club last year, Tommy being moved from fullback to centre, he wasn't happy about that. There were Manly players coming out to journalists, a couple of Manly players speaking to journalists, that journalists would not name, but they openly came out and said, look, I've heard from players themselves that they weren't happy about the Cherry Evans thing, and they had some problems there with Seabold, communication problems. Apparently, they think he's a terrific guy, but his communication seems to be a bit technical for those, especially those younger players coming through, to understand fully what he means, and where he's coming from when adjusting or coming up with a game plan. For the next game, the Tigers and the Roosters. I thought the Roosters looked really good early on. I'm pretty sure in this game they were up 16-0. Hugo Savala set up a beautiful try on that left edge with an amazing pass. I thought he was absolutely fantastic in that 6 jersey. What a fantastic player he was for them last year, making his debut after a few rounds. And man, what a great combination him and Sam Walker had. I thought Toby Rodwell looked pretty sharp, to be honest, in that 7 jersey. I thought, think about this kid too. I've heard so much about him, so there was a lot of interest with me watching this game. He, man, for a young halfback, and they've got massive raps on this kid, so it wouldn't surprise me down the track if Hugo Savala, because he's such a big body, he reminds me of a young Wade Graham at the Penrith Panthers in around 08-09, where I could see Savala ending up on an edge, or like in the second row position. Sorry, my brain's bloody. I've changed about 10 shitty nappies today, and it's been a long night. 2 kids under 20 months last night, so I'm doing my best here. I'm trying to remember, but I think you could play Savala. I don't know why I mentioned that, but anyway, I'm just traumatized by those nappies. I just kept thinking, why is there so much poo on these fucking nappies? Like, it just kept coming. Anyway, back to the Tigers and the Roosters. There's a bit of ADHD for you. I thought Toby Rodwell. Yeah, I think he'll end up being the future 6 at the club alongside Sam Walker long term. And when Cherry Evans retires in a couple of years, I reckon Savala will move to the edge, either 11 or 12 on the edge forward, the second row position, or he could play as a ball playing lock, which I could definitely see him doing that down the track. I think he's a really smart player, Hugo Savala, that could certainly transition into that position like a young Wade Graham did. Toby Rodwell, for me, he looked really sharp. So, in this game, he was really happy to take the ball forward to the line before getting smashed by the opposition in defence. And he took it right to the line. Like, he played really sharp football where he'd get the ball and he'd just sort of dummy it and then just run straight and then let the decoy go back and then pass it way out the back and then bang. Every time he just consistently got hit time and time again. And if you watch the game again, Roosters fans, just look at how much this young halfback took it to the line before getting consistently hit by the defensive line. It just reminded me of a young Kieran Foran at Manly who just did that time and time again, which Brett Stewart you know, in my opinion, he would have loved Kieran Foran coming to the club at Manly in 2009 because it gave Brett Stewart so much time. It gave him so much time to come up with these beautiful cutout passes to either George Tafua or Michael Robertson or David Williams or Michael Barney. And, like Foran taking it to the line and passing it on the last couple of seconds creates so much space for that fullback. And I reckon that's why one of the reasons why the fullback, young Rex Bassingthwaite, looked really impressive in attack at fullback because Rodwell did give him so much time to play with. I think every fullback would love that kind of halfback to just take it to the line. I played in the halves from under sixes to A grade, and man, I was just too scared to take it to the line. Like, I got smashed as I did. I just got absolutely belted. It was good fun though. But yeah, I was like, man, I wish I could play like Kieran Foran or Brad Fittler. I wish I could do that. And then in my head, I'd go into the game thinking, yeah, I'm going to do this. I'm going to take it to the line. And then I'll look at the opposition, and I'm just this little skinny 18-year-old kid. And I look at the opposition, and there's this big Islander dude like Mr. T. And he just looked at me and went, like that. And I was just like, oh, you know what, mate, I might just like get the ball. And then what I might do is just take it to the line a little bit and then pass it so that if you're charging at me, I've got time to just weave away. And I think he noticed that pretty early on, unfortunately. That's why I just play rugby league on PlayStation now. I don't get scared, and it's much, much easier. No more hospital visits, no more injuries. Anyway, back to the football. I thought Siwa Wong was absolutely fantastic. I thought he was really strong in that lock position. After watching Siwa Wong in this game, I'm just not sure what his best position is. You could put him at front row; he'd do a job for you. There was a lot of talk about Siwa Wong going into the 2024 season. So the game in Vegas, pretty sure he started on the edge, replacing Angus Crichton, who was out of that game. And I thought he did a really good job in that game. For me, he's an edge forward at the moment at this stage of his career, but probably a guy that can come on from the bench. I think he's got to be in the starting 17 for the Roosters. I just think he's been in their system for too long now where he needs to have a consistent crack because he's been reliable for them and consistent. For me, he's just got such a good athletic, strong body where I just think he can get through so much work. He looked really fit in this game. Like really fit. He got through a lot of work, so I thought he was really impressive. For the Tigers, I thought Jock Madden was, decent. I thought he conducted his side around well. We know what we're going to get from Jock Madden. He's not going to be that flashy superstar half, but he was going to always do a really good job for the Tigers. And he did a good job for Brisbane for that couple of years when he was there. I remember in Magic Round 2024, he got a field goal against Manly, and Brisbane ended up winning that game. So I thought Tristan Hope was really good at dummy half in this game as well. I think he's a really decent backup 9 to Api Coruscant. We remember that video last year in the early rounds for the Tigers where Benji Marshall sat down with Tristan Hope in his office and said, hey, look, I'm going to give you my debut because he'd been working so hard. And I think at 28 years of age or 27 years of age, he ended up getting his first crack in first grade, and he just never gave up. He just kept playing until he ended up playing first grade. It was a really good watch, a really good moment in season 2025 off the field. Now this kid, Tigers fans, mate, oh my God. Massi Makasini, 3 tries in this game, and he scored them pretty easily. Man, he looked amazing. He's got to start. He's only 18 years old. He just finished high school last year. He has to start for the Tigers in season 2026, and I reckon he will. If you've got Massi Makasini in one centre and you've got May on another centre, like for me, I reckon May should be on the wing. Like he played a lot of wing. Taylor May, he played a lot of wing for the Penrith Panthers when he played there for a few years, and I thought he was really strong. He was really a really good winger, a great finisher, kick returns really strong, really hard to handle, and a really good defender from the wing as well. So for me, I reckon the Tigers are probably better off maybe putting Taruva into the centres or perhaps May to the wing. I reckon they're going to start with Macassini and May in the centres, but I thought he was absolutely outstanding. Charlie Murray, I thought he was really impressive for the Tigers in this game. He looked really good off the. I'm pretty sure he started on the bench in this game. Yeah, he did. Yep. So he was really, really impressive. If you're a Tigers fan, you've got a lot of young guns coming through there. So I know there's the Tigers. That they went through a lot last year, but you've got a good system in place there. I reckon Benji's doing a lot of good work, and yeah, I mean the way the Roosters started that game, they should have won that game convincingly. They had players such as Tommy Talau in there as well. I just think they had the Egan Butcher playing as well. So they had some first graders in there. And yeah, I think they probably should have ended up going along with that. Um, I thought the other Rodwell brother, I thought Tom Rodwell on the wing, I thought he was really impressive for the Roosters as well. But a really good win there for the Tigers. I reckon Benji Marshall would be really happy with those younger players coming through the ranks there. But yeah, Macassini for me is just absolutely fantastic. What a player for the Tigers. The next game was at the same ground. The Bulldogs and the Knights. Dear, oh dear, oh dear, Newcastle fans. Man. Oh, Jack Howarth. Sorry, I just remembered the Melbourne Centre. Oh, I got there. Jack Howarth. Remember, I was talking about the back row about 15 minutes. How ADHD is that? Bang, that's right. Um, Jack Howarth. He's the back rower for the Melbourne Storm. About 15 minutes where I was going, fuck, what was his name for about a minute there? Yeah, look, I used to edit sections like that out. I'm not anymore. If I forget something, I'm going to leave it in there. Or natural, this podcast, I'm going to leave it in there. But yeah, Jack Howarth, yeah. So I reckon he's an option too. Lavatu and Joe Chan in the edge, but I reckon Jack Howarth could go from the centres to play back row. He played a lot of back row in his juniors. Anyway, let's go back from there to the Bulldogs. ADHD, stands for attention deficit. Hey, dog, Bulldogs. For me, 28 points to nil over the Newcastle Knights. Jonathan Sewer was really impressive on the wing. I think last year when Marcelo Montoya or Jacob Kraz did get injured, Inari Tuala would come on and play on the wing and did a decent job for the Bulldogs. But I think this guy, Jonathan Sewer, needs to be the next man up if there is an injury in place. I know Jacob Kraz has been under an injury cloud and so has Marcelo Montoya over the last few weeks, but they are both expected to play and start in this game. For the Bulldogs as well, Matt Burton with a hamstring injury. Look, I don't want to be one to say, oh, look, there's no way he'll play in Vegas because I just have no idea. Like my stepmom, Kathy, she teaches PD. And whenever I need an injury update or whether I think a player will come back or whatnot, I call her and say, do you reckon he can come back? And, she's spot on all the time. So, look, I've got to be honest with you. I reckon I've got no idea. I'll call my stepmom and I'll get back to you on the podcast about Matt Burton. But a lot of people are saying there's no chance that he'll be playing, but um, the club seem confident that he'll be okay. So it'll be really interesting to see Team List Tuesday next week, going into round one. Oh, guys, we are so close to the NRL season. I'm getting really fucking nervous, actually. Yeah, like just nervous. I always get nervous this time of year. It's exciting, but it's also like, oh, okay, we know what an emotional roller coaster rugby league can be. Am I ready for this ride? And I think I am. But yeah, it comes with a lot of nerves. Um, yeah, so I thought the Bulldogs were fuck. They look good, man. They look good. Like they talking about Matt Burton before he got injured. Like you know, how good did he look too? Like I thought. Think about this game. Sean O'Sullivan, when he came on and played halfback, Lachlan Galvin then moved to 5'8". I thought Sullivan he was absolutely outstanding. Like, what a buy for the club. What an underrated player. We forget when the Dolphins started playing in season 2023 when they came into the NRL. He was the number 7 and Isaiah Katoa was the number 6. And I thought Sean O'Sullivan was absolutely outstanding for the Dolphins in that season. Then he got injured after about 8 or 9 rounds in season 2023, and he was injured for the majority of that season. But he started the season really well, and there's talk about Sean O'Sullivan down the track of becoming a first-grade NRL coach. There are massive raps from people around the clubs he's been at: Penrith, the Dolphins. Pretty sure he was at the Newcastle Knights at one stage, and now the Bulldogs. I tell you what, actually, no, his old man Peter O'Sullivan's at the Knights as a recruitment officer. But he's just a terrific. He looks like a terrific young man. I just signed him on my rugby league 26 career mode as head coach. Look, I don't think I'll play him first grade most weeks, but just want to help him. Help me coach those younger blokes on PlayStation coming through the ranks. Gee, I love that game. Um, yeah, I just think Sean O'Sullivan's a fantastic player. I thought he directed the side around. I thought his kicking game was good. He kicked one out in the full in the second half, but apart from that, I just thought he made a couple of line breaks, set up a couple of tries. Oh man, I thought he was really, really good. And the thing about him when he came on is he really freed up Lachlan Galvin. Galvin just played his natural style. And I will say, even before Burton got injured, Galvin, for me, he's not a seven. He's a six. He's a ball playing six. But he actually looked good in the seven. He actually did look good in the seven before Burton got injured. He was actually doing a really good job at halfback too in that position before Sullivan came on and took a bit of pressure off him, so then he could start, focusing on his normal running game. For me, the Knights. By the way, Stephen Crichton, fucking outstanding. The Knights, man, 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 man. Fuck. Like, I know they had players out, Kalen Ponga, Fletcher Sharp, Leo Thompson. I get that they had players out, but they needed to get a fucking point, didn't they? Like, they were playing at home, decent sized crowd. Sure, they were up against a pretty well full strength Bulldog side, well, one of the best Bulldog sides that they could come up with at the time. They still have a few injuries, but fucking hell, man, you just expect them to score a try. In my opinion, I thought Sandon Smith was a bit disappointing in this game in the number 7 jersey. I thought Dylan Brown had a few nice touches, but overall, probably expected a little bit more. Then again, it was his first hit out in Newcastle colours. So how much do you take out of that game if you're a Newcastle fan? I've got to say, guys, I'm really concerned. I'm really concerned. Like, I think if you're a Knights fan, you leave the ground thinking, fuck. Like that was bad. They still had enough talent there to at least contest. The first try they should have scored. Like, that was, for me, that was a really shit call. Stephen Crichton was offside. When he got obstructed, so that was just a bullshit call. That should have just been ignored. That should have been a try. So I'll defend them there. But apart from that, I thought their edge defense was extremely poor. Bradman Best, he needs to fix his errors. He's just got 1 or 2 errors in every game he plays. He just needs to fix his errors. He had some nice touches, but he really needs to work on his passing game too. Like, if there's a 2-on-1, sometimes he really fucks it up. So he really needs to work on that and get that combination right with his wingers. I just think the Knights, oh man, I don't know. Fletcher Hunt had a couple of nice touches at fullback. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I just thought, you know, Thomas Cant played pretty well. McEwen did all right. I thought Matt Croker had a couple of great big shots in defence, but overall, it's just a really disappointing outcome. Like, you got to be sitting there going, fuck. Like, and then the Fox League camera shows Adam O'Brien as the assistant coach in the Bulldogs coaches box, smiling and laughing with his other coaches. And look, he wasn't laughing at the Knights. I've got no doubt he wasn't laughing at the fans or the Knights or whatever. But he was having a nice time. He was happy. He looked comfortable. And if I'm a Knights fan, I'm probably just watching that going, fucking hell, what a disastrous day of rugby league. You probably expected at least 18 points, to be honest. As I mentioned, sure, they had their 3 best players out, but, well, no, Dylan Brown was in there, but, Fletcher Sharp, Kalen Ponga, Leo Thompson, you, you, I don't know. I don't know where to go with Newcastle. For me, unfortunately, I think they'll get the wooden spoon in season 2026. I just look at their forward pack, their lack of depth in the forwards. I think they've got a young bloke called Kobe Hopwood coming through, or Corey Hopwood, I should say. So there's massive raps on him. I hope he gets a good crack in first grade this year. But yeah, I thought Dylan Lucas was a bit underwhelming in this game. I've got high hopes on him, so that was really disappointing to see. That's all I'll touch on because, yeah, sure, it was a trial, but unfortunately, you do take some things out of a trial, especially when there are games like this one where there is more expectation on your team if you're a supporter, based on the fact that there were a lot of first graders playing in this game. So the fact that they didn't get a point playing at home, sure, the Dogs for me are going to make the grand final this year. Like I'll just tell you my predictions from time to time, and I'll probably be wrong with most of them, but it's nice to have an opinion on the greatest game of all, rugby league. The Charity Shield, Souths 28 points to 24. I'll just rush through these next few minutes because it's almost an hour's podcast now. Souths for me, how good was that? Really unfortunate for their young halfback, Jonah Glover, where, I was hearing last week that he was going to get first crack in that 7 jersey alongside Cody Walker in the 6. So he's broken his jaw. He'll be out for up to a couple of months now, which is devastating for the young bloke. He's 22 years of age, came to the Rabbitohs from the Dragons. Thought Jamie Humphries was impressive in this game. I thought his kicking game was pretty good. Sean Kepi was quite strong when he came on. Matt Duffy was really impressive. I don't think he'll see overly much first grade at all this year, and I think he knows that. He understands that after hearing his interview with Yvonne Sampson after the game. But at the end of the day, I thought it was a really good hit out for Matt Duffy. I thought there was, Peter Mamazoulis. I thought his service from dummy half was good. Thought his defence was good. The Dragons, just like the Knights, fucking disappointing. Heavy favourites to win this game. And look, the Knights weren't favourites to win that game, but they were expected to score a point. The Dragons were expected to win this game at home. They had their full strength lineup available. Considering Valentine Holmes was injured, they had David Farley in the centres, who, mind you, I thought he played really well. I'll touch on the Dragons really quickly. I thought Setu 2 looks really good. He looks really promising. A winger they've bought from the Warriors. I think he's around 25 years of age. And look, he made an error that led to a try to South Sydney, which pretty much ended up winning them the game by only 4 points. They ended up winning. But, I thought the Dragons, I thought Damien Cook, he bombed that fucking try. If he catches that, they probably end up winning it. Atkinson at times looked good. He combined really well with Gutherson. Gutherson was fucking outstanding in this game. He just never gave up. He was really, really good when he was on the field. The combination did not look slick between Kyle Flanagan and Daniel Atkinson. Individually, I thought they played pretty well. But when they needed to combine and come up with something with a backline play, the passes were fucking horrific from Flanagan and Daniel Atkinson. They didn't find the mark a few times through the game, which was disappointing. I thought Damien Cook's lost a yard of speed, unfortunately. I don't know. If I'm a Dragons fan, I'm pretty worried about season 2026, unfortunately. Before that game, I didn't have them in the 8, but I probably had them higher. But after that game, you've got to lose confidence, don't you, as a supporter watching that? It was actually really quite probably the biggest upset in Charity Shield history. Well, that's what Dan Ganane said after the game, and he's been watching rugby league a lot longer than I have. And what was that, the 43rd Charity Shield? I reckon Dan Ganane's probably in his late 50s. He's probably seen most of them. 50s, late 50s, yeah. So, yeah, that was a shame. That was a shame. The Dragons should have won that game. Thought Leilua had a couple of good touches there. Overall, disappointing. South Sydney, as I mentioned, fucking congratulations to the supporters that travelled there. Fantastic. I listened to a young guy on his podcast. He travelled there on his YouTube channel. Mate, he seemed like he had a great time. So absolutely fantastic. Good on him. Really happy for him and his South Sydney Rabbitohs. Parramatta Eels and the Sharks. The Eels 40 points to 6 and the Cronulla Sharks. Parramatta 40 to the Sharks 6. I'll make this one really quick, guys. Riley Smith for me. He looked really, really good in this game. Looked solid. For me, he just reminds me of a young Reid Marnie in season 2019. Just looks like an up and coming, good, solid number nine that will play many, many years in the first grade position. Pretty sure his debut was in Melbourne last year in round one. I'm pretty sure. And I just think that was a shocking debut, but not for him personally, but just for the team. But it was really good to see those that shined for Parramatta. Bailey Simonson, Sean Russell. What a fantastic try that was from him. If you're a Perth Bears fan watching that, or Mal Meninga, you've got to be really impressive with that sign. Really happy and impressed with that signing and what he was able to deliver in this trial match. Jordan Samrani was really, really good as well. I thought he was a fantastic standout. I thought when he played for Parramatta in season 2026, he was really impressive as well. In 2025, when he played, he was really, really good. Yeah, I thought, Jonah Pezzett played pretty well in the halves at halfback. Really good for Parramatta this year. As I mentioned last week when I touched on Parramatta, is that when Mitchell Moses, if he gets injured again this year at certain points of the season where he is, fair to say now at this stage of his career, he is quite injury prone, or if he does, you know, he will get selected in Origin if he's fit, you'd think. Then Jonah Pezzett can play seven. As the last few years, I've had Dylan Brown move from 6 to 7, and Brown can't play seven. He's not a traditional halfback, as Jonah Pezzett is a traditional seven. As we know, he'll be going to the Broncos next year and will probably most likely be their long-term halfback at the club. I thought he played pretty well. He put some nice kicks in, just controlled the game really well. Uh, Papali'i in that number 6 jersey, did his thing. I thought he was really impressive. Iongi did his thing. I thought that did really, really well. The Sharks, look, I'm not going to talk about them too much because at the end of the day, I watched them and I watched them closely. Toby Rudolph started in that lock forward position. He did okay. Look, Parramatta had a lot more first graders than the Sharks, and the Sharks, they remind me of Penrith and the Melbourne Storm in this game, in this trial weekend, where you just can't take much out of it. Like you're up against a lot of experienced first graders in that side, a lot of players that have played a lot of first grade now, and at the end of the day, I thought the Sharks, they've got a really good system coming through there. Craig Fitzgibbon since 2022 has set up really high standards at the club, and all their juniors and development squads are doing really, really well at the moment. So you can't take too much out of it as a Cronulla fan. You can't be too concerned at all. You had Nico Hines and Braden Trindle playing in the halves for the All-Stars match. And you hardly had any first grade players. Now, Cade Dykes, I'm pretty sure, was a player that was at Cronulla and he's gone to the Bulldogs. For me, he could end up being the one player that they might end up missing down the track. I'm hearing great things about Cade Dykes, and Connor Tracy, for me, he's just not the long-term fullback there. I reckon young Cade Dykes could be the long-term fullback alongside Galvin at 6 and Mitchell Woods at 7 with Bailey Hayward at 9. And with William Kennedy, not signed for season 2027 and beyond at Cronulla, they will be looking for a new fullback, you'd think. And personally, I don't know if they can afford to keep a lot of players that are coming off contract at the end of the year, which they are, like Sifa Talakai and whatnot. So it's going to be really interesting to see how they go. I thought Sam Stonestreet needed to be a big watch in this game based on the fact that he will be their winger for at least half the season, with Ronaldo Mulatalo tearing his ACL in the later stages of the season last year. I think it was in the Pacific Championships from memory. But at the end of the day, you can't take too much out of it if you're a Sharks fan. It is what it is. You can't, as a Manly fan, I didn't tip Manly this week because I just thought, well, they're a reserve grade squad. It is what it is. They haven't got overly much first grade experience at all in that squad. Same thing. Somehow Manly won that. But same thing with the Sharks. If you're a Sharks fan, you can't be too disappointed at all. That'll conclude the NRL trials for week 2. I won't lie, I didn't expect it to go for an hour and 4 minutes, but that will conclude the Rugby League Forecast podcast for today. Tomorrow, I'll be going through the team lists for week 3 of the trials. and also reviewing the All-Stars game that was over the weekend too. This is the Rugby League Forecast podcast. Please follow on Spotify and subscribe to the YouTube channel if you haven't done so already. Cheers.